Hi, it's Kylie Q. Thanks for joining me in my studio today. So this month in the Mixed Media Emporium Facebook group, we are making a journal. So far we've made and decorated the journal cover and added our signatures. And the challenge for this week is to make your own embellishments and ephemera. So here are some ideas from me. As I've said before, I work very slowly, so I'm going to put this on at speed. Now, I've got here a piece of deli paper, I've got 3 coins, and I'm just putting them into an embossing stamp pad. I'm now taking a glue gun and I'm just making 3 little blobs of glue, because what I'm going to be making is faux wax seals. I'm just going over these with the heat tool. It just flattens them a little bit. Then I'm going to take my coins and I'm going to push them in with the side that was on the embossing stamp down into the glue. That should just help them to not stick as much as they might have done otherwise. Now, just to say, and I say this because I did it myself, the coins do get very hot and the heat stays in them for a little while. So difficult to see at this stage. I'd put it on deli paper, but they do actually still stick to the deli paper. So really, if you had a waxed paper or something like that, it might be better. But I know that I can take most of this off and the deli paper's clear, so I'm not too concerned. So there's my 3 faux wax seals, but obviously I'll do more with these in a moment. So I'm just taking some simple craft acrylics, and you can use any colours at all. I've just taken a black, a red, and I think it's a kind of mint green. You just need a tiny amount, and I'm just going to cover the entirety of that side and around the edges. Now, it doesn't look much at this point, but what I want to do now is to lay them off to the side to dry. Now I'm going to take the red. I'm leaving the black paint in there. Just take a little bit off because I'm quite happy that it's a kind of darker red colour. And again, just making sure I get a reasonable coat. You could actually do a couple of coats on this, so let it dry in between and do a second coat if you want. Now taking the mint green, and this is a good way if you've got any little bottles of paint that are nearly done or getting to that kind of dried up point, just putting some of that on. Put too much on there, so just having to take some of it off. You really don't need a lot of paint for this. And then I'm just going to leave them to dry. While they're drying, I'll show you another way to do this. I've just got a little circle of paper. I just stamped it with my punch. I've got some copper embossing powder. I'm putting my paper onto the embossing pad. I'll cover it with the embossing powder. Getting a reasonable amount of coverage on that. Just going to put that off to the side. I'll take my heat tool and heat that up. Yeah, you can see it starting to activate. I'll just let it cool a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is put it in the embossing pad again. Getting good coverage on it. Now, sorry, slightly off the camera there, just moving it back in. It's just because I was so close up. And I've put another layer of embossing powder on it. And again, I'm going to activate that, and then I'll do it one more time. And I like how it's got all the little bits of texture in it. I think it makes the seal look just that little bit more realistic. So give it a second or two to cool. Back onto the embossing pad, into the powder, just putting it face down. I move that powder and then just put it away, don't want to waste it. I've put the excess powder away. I'm taking a coin, putting it onto the embossing pad again. I'm now going to heat that last layer. And while it's still hot and soft, I'm going to drop my coin into it. Now, there I pushed my finger down on it to keep it in, and my finger lifted it out, so I didn't get the best impression, but you get the idea. Next, you can take something like a metallic paint or metallic luster, such as Inca Gold. This is very dried out, so I just put my finger in, and all I'm going to do is start to go over the print that's on the faux wax seal. And this will just start to hit those high points, and you'll start to see more of the design, in this case from the coins. Now obviously you're going to get a reverse design. You're not going to see exactly what it says on the coin because it will be in reverse. But for me, that's okay. I'm not looking for it to be a perfect design anyway, because I want these to look quite old, quite aged, quite grungy. Just took the green luster there and putting it over the green one, and you can see it just lifts it a little bit, even just doing the green on the copper there. Now I think the glue ones look more realistic, but you know, if you don't have the hot glue gun, then I think just using the embossing powder on paper is a good alternative. And all I'm doing now is taking a little bit of paper towel and just kind of buffing it up. It just takes off any excess of the luster and just shines it up a little bit. So there we have it. Now I had made some others as a practice before, letting you see these. I'd set some little pieces of baby's breath into that, and I put some clear embossing powder over it. When I was drying it off though, when I was activating the clear powder, I did kind of slightly singe the baby's breath, but it doesn't matter. So some turned out better than others, doesn't matter, I will use them all. So that's just to let you see those, and I'll show you in a little while how you might use them. So by chance I discovered that clear embossing powder makes the deli paper even more transparent when you dry clear powder on top of it. So I had been doing some practices with that as well. So I've just taken a piece of deli paper here, stamping a couple of butterflies, and I'll stamp a couple of hearts. And again, this is just to make some more embellishments. I would quite like to make up a little stash of things to keep with my journal, things that I might use on different pages. You know, I tend to use hearts, I tend to use butterflies, I tend to use birds. So I just want to make up a few things that I can use. Can't do them all today, but just to demonstrate to you. Just making sure that the stamped images are fully set before I go on to the next stage. Now this is something that I think would have fit quite nicely with the faux slides that I made last year, and I'll put a link to that, and indeed to other little embellishments that I made I think last year and over the years. I'll put that together in a little playlist. So I'm just taking some of these Neocolor 2s. You could use a watercolour paint, or you could even use a thinned down acrylic. You could use colour pencil if you wanted. I just wanted to make a very light colour on these. So you see, just doing it quite scribbly, and in a moment what I'll do is I'll just take a paintbrush with some water and start to blend that in and thin it out a bit. I really just wanted to get a bit of colour onto it, and this seemed an easy way to do it, and this is what I'd done with a couple of practices yesterday when I first discovered the effect of the clear embossing powder. So I've got that on, dabbing off the excess, want this to dry as quickly as possible, and I'll go over it with the heat tool as well, just to make certain that it's fully dry. And I just wanted to show here that you can, if you want, just take something like gel pens and just do a bit of colouring. You could also use colour pencils. I don't have enough patience sometimes for colouring, and especially not when I'm filming, because it does take me a while. So just showing you a little bit of how it can be coloured here, and obviously you need to make sure that this is set before you go on to the next stage. Now that they're fully dry, I'm just taking my embossing stamp pad and I'm just covering each of the stamped images. Just making sure that it gets a good covering. And once that's done, I'm going to take my clear embossing powder and I'm just going to make sure that these are completely covered. And for me, this was a way to really use this powder because I've had it a while and I don't actually remember ever using the clear before. I know I've used some of the others, but you know, for me this is also about using things that are in my stash, especially things that I haven't used very much in the past. So just putting that away, and then I will activate this with the heat tool. And gone in a little bit closer just so you can see it. And immediately it takes on that kind of glossy, glass-like appearance. And I think this would be nice, as I say, in the faux slides or in something like that. When I was doing this yesterday, as I say, it was just by chance I came across it. Probably other people will have known about this forever. But I thought, oh, that's still wet. But in fact it was dry. It's just got that glossiness. And you can see how the deli paper becomes more transparent doing that. And it's totally dry. So those are my second lot of little embellishments, and now I'm going to show you how I'm going to use them. Now within my playlist there'll be a link to how to make envelopes and other kind of things like that, but here I've got an old medicine packet, you know, one of these envelopes that they put your prescription in. I've obviously used bits of it before. It's torn at the top. All I'm going to do is glue that down. Of course, I glue it over and then realise, of course, that I need to glue the other edge to that edge that I've just closed. Really just want to show you here that there's scope to use any kind of junk creatively. So I'll put that off to the side and just let that dry a bit. Next I'm taking this old tea bag packet. I love to incorporate these into journal pages. And I've just got a piece here. This came from the faux gel printing that we did last year as well. So using up my scraps of painted papers as well. And all I'm going to do is a very quick and easy cover of the tea bag. So just measuring it very roughly. I'm not even cutting it, I'm just simply tearing this. And all I'm going to do is to roughly cover that packet, and I don't mind if the top of the packet peeks out. In fact, for me that just gives it a kind of layered effect. So this is a good way to use scraps, use things in our stash. So I go off to get a glue stick at this point. I decide a glue stick will do this as good as anything. And then I notice that that tea bag says Sweet Dreams at the top of it on that side. And I decide that I'd actually quite like that to be showing. So I'm just going to adjust it to try and make sure I can get that. And then you'll see in a moment that I tear a little bit off just to reveal the bit that says Sweet Dreams. Just tearing it, leaving it with that ragged edge, and I'm quite happy with that. So I decide now that I could use some of the embellishments that I just made earlier and add them to this little, what will become a pocket on a journal page. So I'm just roughly tearing out the hearts, and what you can do here, if you would rather, is just cut round the heart. So that's what I'm doing. And you'll see it still has that nice glossy glass-like effect. Now I'm just cutting it very roughly. And all I'm going to do is use some glue to go onto the back of that. I've just used glue stick at the moment. I don't know, it might need a heavier glue. I'll see if it lifts at all. But for the time being, I'm just putting that down. Then I take one of the little Faux Wax Seals, just with a little bit of the baby's breath in it. I use a heavier glue for that. I use a sticky glue for that. and just put that in place. And I like the fact that it says Sweet Dreams at the top. Next, I'm just going to take this old wage envelope. I used to alter a lot of these. Now, I want to make sure that it doesn't inadvertently stick together, albeit the gum on it has basically long gone, I think. So I'm just covering those over with a bit of washi tape. I'll cover that bit as well where it says please check the contents immediately. I'm only going to decorate one side of this because I'm not entirely certain how I'll use this yet. And here I'm looking at taking one of my butterflies and decorating the front with the butterfly. Initially I decided not to paint the entire envelope because I quite like that kind of buff coloured paper, that kind of craft paper. So I've not cut round that butterfly, I'm just taking it as is. I quite like the blue colours that kind of surround it, and all I'm going to do is, I think I take some matte gel medium for this one and put it on. And put it down and into place. Now I know from something that I did yesterday when I was having a little go at this on something else, and you can actually still paint on top of it. So although it's glassy, it can still, and glossy, you can still paint on top of it. And I'll show you a bit of that in a moment. I'm now just going to take one of my Faux Wax Seals and just glue this down as well. So this then has the effect of looking as if it's a sealed envelope. And there's lots of scope to do this in different ways, and in fact I had intended to do lots more in today's video, but realised time wise, I don't want to make the video so long, but maybe come back to some of the other ideas that I had at another point. I felt that I needed to do a little bit more to the envelope there. It was just looking a little bit too stark for me. So all I'm going to do is take some white craft paint, doesn't need a lot, and just start to blend that piece into the background a little bit more. So I'm just trying to create, I guess, a kind of cloud effect here. So you'll see that the paint goes on top of the glossy effect of the deli paper, no problem at all. And just smoothing it out a little bit with my finger as well. I do have to glue down a little edge that I hadn't quite caught. Just use my paintbrush there to put a bit of gel medium underneath that edge. I did wash the gel medium off though because I don't want the paintbrush, this particular paintbrush, getting all glued up. Just come back in, putting a little bit more paint on it, and I think it just helps create that kind of notion of the butterfly flying through the clouds. And of course this is the type of thing that once I start I can play away at something like this for ages, just till I get the effect that I want. So some quite straightforward projects today, and ones that you can bring your own kind of style and flair to. This could be done in so many different ways. You could go for colours and papers that match with your journal, or like me, you could be a bit more eclectic and just go with it and go with the flow kind of thing. So here we have the finished pieces. So I have my Faux Wax Seals, I have my little deli stamped images, my little altered tea bag cover, just using some of the little embellishments on it, and my altered wage packet envelope there. Just showing you how this might go in. I'm still thinking about, do I want something on that front page, and seeing that I think it looks quite nice there. I would just put some washi tape around it, I think, to hold it in, or some glue behind it. And my thinking is, I could use this as a little pocket just to hold things for use in this journal as I go through it. Again, that packet could sit somewhere. It could act as a double pocket kind of thing, or a pocket and also tuck spot. But we'll see how we use them as time goes on. As I say, I just want to make a few little things like this that I can use throughout this journal. So do check out my playlist for other possible ideas, and of course do also check out Nina's video to see what she's come up with for this week. And of course you can come up with your own ideas. Just be sure to make sure you say what prompt it is when you're posting in the Facebook group. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please do take care, and I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.